The twin suns of Vareth hung low in the sky, casting a harsh orange light across the barren battlefield. Smoke and dust swirled around the jagged rocks, hiding the bodies of soldiers who had fought and fallen in silence. Eli felt the weight of his own injuries pressing against him. His armor was scorched, his helmet cracked, and his breath came in short, sharp gasps. The explosion had thrown him across the rocks, leaving him disoriented and alone. He tried to move, but pain shot through his side. His fingers brushed the jagged metal of a broken comm device, but it was useless. No one could hear him now. He closed his eyes, expecting the darkness to take him. Every soldier he had ever fought alongside flashed through his mind, and for a moment he allowed himself to imagine that he might die without anyone noticing. Then, through the haze, he saw them. Tall armored figures moving with precision and power. He knew them instantly from the intelligence briefings, the Varithi warriors. They were said to be merciless, unyielding, and completely loyal to their queen. Humans were nothing to them, just another species to conquer or destroy. Eli's heart raced and he braced himself for the end, but instead of attacking, they paused. Their weapons lowered slightly, and in the center of their formation was a figure taller than the rest. Her armor glinted in the sunlight, not just as protection, but as a sign of authority. Her presence alone seemed to command the air around her, bending it with her will. Eli's breath caught. This was Queen Serath, the ruler of the Varithi Empire, the one figure whose name carried fear across the galaxy. She knelt beside him. There was a strange quiet in the air, a pause in the war that made everything else feel distant. One of her armored hands reached for his helmet and lifted it gently. His head felt exposed, vulnerable, yet he couldn't look away from her eyes. Silver, luminous, and intelligent beyond comprehension. "Do not fear," she said, her voice resonating in a way that was both foreign and comforting. "You are not to die today." Eli's mind spun. The queen of the Varithi, the one who had led countless conquests, was here beside him, speaking to him as if he were someone of importance. Before he could respond, he felt warmth on his lips, a strange pulse of energy spreading through his body. His vision blurred, his pain melting away as if it had never existed. He opened his eyes just in time to see her leaning closer, her lips brushing his in a motion that was both ritual and necessity. It was a healing gesture, one he could barely understand. The energy flowing between them mended his broken bones, restored his burned flesh, and soothed the ache in his chest. It was the most surreal sensation he had ever experienced. The warmth was not just physical. It was as if life itself had found him again. When the moment ended, Eli's vision cleared. His side no longer hurt. His breathing was steady, and his body felt alive in a way he hadn't felt in days. The queen stepped back, and for the first time she looked uncertain. Something flickered in her expression, something she had never shown to her warriors. Curiosity, or perhaps surprise at her own reaction. The armored soldiers around them whispered, their voices low and cautious. No human had ever survived the queen's touch, let alone been healed by it. Their looks were full of awe and confusion, but none dared challenge her. Serath stood, straightening her armor, her presence commanding the battlefield once more. "You will come with me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You will be observed. You will be studied. No harm will come to you while I am here." Eli wanted to ask questions, to understand why she had saved him, but his voice felt foreign, weak. Instead, he nodded, trusting in her word because he had no other choice. As the soldiers escorted him away, he caught a glimpse of the battlefield, once full of chaos, now silent, as if the planet itself held its breath. By the time they reached the palace, Eli's mind was racing. The citadel of the Varithi Queen was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towers of glimmering metal rose into the sky, and glowing plants lined the walkways, their lights pulsing gently. Advanced technology hummed in every corner, yet it all felt alive, organic, not merely mechanical. He could see why the Varithi had conquered so many worlds. Their civilization was unmatched, both in power and in beauty. He was taken to a chamber, spacious and filled with soft golden light. The walls shimmered, almost breathing, and strange symbols glowed faintly, their meanings lost on him. For a moment he felt small, fragile, and insignificant. Then she entered. Queen Serath approached him not with the formality he had expected from a ruler, but with careful attention. She examined his wounds, spoke softly about the healing process, and asked about his world. Humans, she learned, were strange creatures, fragile yet resilient, small yet capable of great courage. Each story Eli told made her pause. Each gesture of bravery or kindness made her reconsider the way she had always viewed humanity. Days passed, and with each day, Eli regained strength. He trained in the palace gardens, moving with a surprising agility that his body had once lacked. Serath visited often, sometimes to observe, sometimes to question, and sometimes silently. Their conversations grew longer, their silences heavier, filled with unspoken understanding. One evening, as Eli rested under the artificial sky of the citadel, a soft knock came at his door. Serath entered, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight of her world. She held a small device, a gift, she said, meant to help him adapt to her environment. He accepted it, marveling at the intricacy of her technology. Yet more than the device, he noticed the way she lingered, her gaze thoughtful. "Why do your people fight?" she asked suddenly, her tone more personal than he had heard before. Eli paused, thinking carefully. "Because sometimes that's the only way to stay human," he said. The words were simple, but they carried weight, echoing in the chamber long after he spoke. The queen did not respond immediately. Instead, she turned away, walking to the window and gazing at the alien horizon, her expression unreadable. That night, a shadow moved through the palace corridors. An assassin, sent by rebel factions within her empire, had come for him. Eli barely had time to react before he felt the air shift. Serath appeared at his side, faster than any human could comprehend, her presence radiant with power. In a blur of motion, she neutralized the threat, her movements precise, deadly, and almost artistic. Eli's heart pounded as he realized the truth. She had saved him more than once. Her protective instincts were more than duty. There was something deeper at work, something neither of them fully understood. Later, as she tended to minor injuries he had sustained during the attempt, she leaned close once more. Her lips brushed his again, lighter this time. Not a ritual, not a necessity, but something else. Eli opened his eyes mid-motion, catching her gaze. It was a look of surprise, of wonder, and perhaps something more. The warmth on his lips was no longer just energy. It was connection. Neither spoke, for words could not contain what had passed between them. Eli felt alive, more alive than he had ever felt. And the queen, though she did not say it aloud, knew that her world would never be the same. From that day forward, the bond between them began to grow. Eli learned about her people, their culture, and their strengths. Serath learned about his world, his humanity, and his courage. Together they began to see that perhaps the universe was larger than conquest and war, that understanding and bravery could change even the coldest hearts. As the twin suns set on Vareth, Eli and the queen stood side by side on the palace balcony. He looked out over the world that had tried to kill him, a world that had rejected him at every turn. Yet here, under alien stars, he found warmth, protection, and something he could not yet name but would recognize when the moment came. And when he closed his eyes that night, he remembered the kiss, the warmth on his lips that had changed everything. It was only the beginning. Eli woke to the faint glow of Vareth's twin suns spilling through the palace's translucent walls. The golden light touched everything, yet it did not warm him the way the queen's presence did. Serath was already there, standing silently by the window, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. He could feel the energy that had bound them lingering between them, quiet but insistent, as if the universe itself had taken notice. "Today, you must train," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. Eli rose, stretching muscles that still ached from battle but no longer screamed with pain. He followed her into the training grounds where alien flora glimmered under the alien sky, and the architecture of the palace seemed to hum with life. His movements were faster, sharper, almost instinctive. Every strike, every block felt more precise than it should for a human. Serath watched, her expression unreadable but her eyes betraying the slightest flicker of pride. "You are improving," she said, her tone clipped but approving. "Not many humans last a week here without breaking under the strain. You are unusual." Eli smirked, brushing a lock of sweat from his forehead. "I have good teachers." The queen's gaze softened for a moment. "And you have survived my touch. That is unusual as well." They moved in silence after that, training together until the twin suns reached their zenith. Eli noticed that each time their hands brushed, each time they exchanged a glance, a strange current of warmth ran through him. It was not just physical but emotional, something he had never experienced before, but peace was fleeting. By the third day, whispers began to circulate through the palace. The Council of Generals, loyal to tradition, murmured about the human anomaly living within the Queen's chambers. Some demanded his immediate execution, calling him a contaminant who had been granted unnatural favor. Sarath heard them but did not respond publicly. Instead, she focused on Eli. "They will come for you," she warned. "Their laws are strict. They do not understand what you represent. But I will protect you." Eli nodded, though he could feel the tension mounting. It was one thing to survive a battlefield. It was another to survive the scrutiny of an entire empire. And yet he trusted her, because every action she took had saved him, healed him, and somehow made him feel human in a way he hadn't in years. That evening, the first attack came. A group of rebel warriors infiltrated the palace, moving through shadowed corridors with silent precision. Eli sensed them before they reached the chamber. Sarath appeared as if from nowhere, her armor shimmering faintly with energy. In the dim light, she moved with grace and lethal speed, her hand striking down anyone who dared approach. Eli joined her, instinct and courage guiding him. Though he was human, the bond they shared lent him strength and reflexes beyond his normal capacity. Together they fought side by side, a human and the queen of the Varethi, cutting through enemies with a combination of skill, strategy, and trust. When the battle ended, Eli was breathing heavily, his uniform torn and bloodied. Sarath's hands moved over him again, healing the cuts and bruises with the same ritual energy that had first saved his life. Their lips met once more, not by accident this time, but as a deliberate connection. The warmth spread through him, filling him with a courage and clarity he could not describe. "You are stronger than I imagined," she said quietly, her voice carrying both awe and something else, an emotion Eli could not yet name. "I'm not strong alone," he replied, looking into her eyes. "I'm strong with you." The following days were filled with tension and preparation. The council had not given up, and they would return with a larger force. Eli trained relentlessly, and Sarath instructed him in strategies and powers unique to the Varethi. They grew closer, their bond deepening beyond the physical. She learned about human loyalty, compassion, and courage, concepts alien to her people but now deeply intertwined with her perception of him. Then came the night of the final assault. The palace alarms blared as thousands of rebels advanced, armed with advanced weaponry and intent on overthrowing the queen. Eli and Sarath prepared in silence, the gravity of the moment pressing down on them. When the first wave reached the citadel gates, the two fought side by side. Sarath's energy blades cut through enemies with deadly precision, while Eli's newfound strength and agility allowed him to match the Varethi warriors, block attacks, and protect her from harm. He noticed that every time they moved in sync, their bond amplified, a shared energy that made them almost unstoppable. But the rebels were relentless. Sarath's council had underestimated their numbers, and soon they found themselves surrounded. The queen's core, a source of immense energy, began to glow. She prepared to release it in a final act that would annihilate the attackers, but Eli stepped in. "No," he said firmly. "You gave me life. Let me give it back." Using the bond they shared, Eli transferred energy back into her, the warmth of their connection bridging human and Varethi essence. Their lips met again during the process, a surge of light and power erupting around them. The rebels were obliterated, unable to withstand the energy that flowed between human and queen. When the light faded, Sarath stood unharmed, radiant, and commanding. Eli collapsed, exhausted, but alive. She caught him, holding him steady as he regained his strength. "You are extraordinary," she whispered, her eyes reflecting stars, not just for your bravery but for your heart. In the aftermath, the council was forced to acknowledge the change. The human they had scorned had become the savior of their empire. Sarath stood before them, her presence unwavering, and declared that humanity was no longer to be dismissed. They would not be enemies. They would be allies. And Eli, the human who had risked everything, would forever be honored in their history. Days passed, and peace settled over the citadel. Eli explored the palace and its gardens, marveling at the alien flora and architecture. Sarath joined him often, and in quiet moments, they spoke not of politics or war, but of dreams, fears, and the strange bond that now connected them. One evening, under the soft glow of bioluminescent plants, Eli turned to Sarath. "I never thought I'd survive here," he said quietly. "And yet, I feel like this is where I belong." She studied him, her expression unreadable. Then she leaned close, her lips brushing his once more. "You belong wherever your heart chooses," she said. "And now, your heart has chosen to stay with me." Eli smiled weakly, feeling the warmth spread through him once more. He realized that it was more than energy or ritual. It was connection, trust, and perhaps even love. In a world that had once rejected him, he had found a place where courage and humanity mattered, a place where one human could change the fate of an entire empire. The story ended not with a battle or a proclamation, but with a quiet understanding. Human and Verethi, bound by courage, kindness, and an impossible kiss, stood together under the twin suns. Their future was uncertain, but for the first time, both of them knew that whatever came, they would face it together. Eli's journey from wounded soldier to savior of an alien empire was complete, yet it was only the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where humanity and the Verethi could learn from one another, and where the warmth of one simple act could echo across the stars. As the twin suns set over Vareth, Eli and Sarath stood side by side, looking at a world forever changed by courage, compassion, and the bond between a human and an alien queen. And when Eli felt that familiar warmth on his lips once more, he knew that some moments, some connections were beyond words, timeless, unbreakable, and entirely theirs.